Alright, so in the previous video, you learned to add and subtract positive and negative numbers. Now we're talking mostly about, well, exclusively right now about integers. So we're only looking at whole numbers that are positive, negative, or zero. But the rules that I'm teaching you actually work for decimals, they work for fractions, they work for crazy numbers, they'll work for anything. So, alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the rules that we learned before, the 3 commandments, for adding and subtracting integers, and we're going to translate them into a new set of rules that are going to help us when we multiply and divide integers. So, put your seatbelt on and pay attention real close because I'm going to try to make this as short a video as possible. So you're really going to have to listen carefully. Alright, first let's review the 3 commandments. Now remember, this is for adding or subtracting. Okay? And so the first commandment basically takes care of the subtracting right away. Thou shalt not subtract. Instead, add the opposite. Alright, we did that. We've talked about that. That was all of 10.3. Okay. Commandment number 2 is once you've changed it to an addition problem, if you're adding 2 things with the same sign, find the sum. If you're adding 2 things with different signs, find the difference. Okay, and again, those words sound almost exactly the same. Same, sum, different, difference. So find same sign, find the sum, different sign, find the difference. And finally, the 3rd commandment, to wrap it up and to finish the answer, is thou shalt keep the sign of thy larger value. Okay? And again, that mostly comes into play when we're doing different signs and one's positive, one's negative. We want to always keep the sign of the number that has the bigger value. Okay? So if we have 3 and 14, and we have negative 3 and positive 14, then the final answer is going to be positive, of course. If we have a positive 3 and a negative 14, then the 14 wins the tug of war. Alright, now before I leave this screen, when you see the word sum, you know that that means to find the answer when you add. And the symbol for adding is a plus sign, correct? Okay. So I want you to think about that because there's another meaning for a plus sign. It can also mean something is positive. You see it on batteries all the time. Sometimes you can put it in front of a number if you want to. You don't have to. It's assumed that if you just see the number 3, it's positive 3. But if you put a plus sign in front of it, plus 3, means the same thing as positive 3. On the other hand, okay, when you do different signs, it says to find the difference. And the sign for difference is a minus sign. Okay, and again, let's circle the minus sign. That means take the difference of 2 numbers. Well, the minus sign also has another meaning. If you see it in front of a number, it means negative. And again, all those same places I said that you see the plus sign, like on a battery, you'll also see a minus sign, which means the negative. So on a battery, a AA or a AAA or a C or a D, the little bumpy side is the positive end of the battery, and there'll be a plus sign up near the top of it. And the side that's kind of dented in, that's kind of flat on the bottom, that's the negative side. Okay. On a car battery, the red side is positive, and the black side is negative. All right. So you see these symbols to mean positive and negative all the time in real life. You also see them all the time in math. All right. Now here is the beautiful part of 10.4 and 10.5. The 3 commandments are really for adding and subtracting integers, right? But when we multiply and divide integers, right here in what I've done in red, the positive and the negative, it's the same, it's the rule for multiplying and dividing. When we multiply and divide, either one, that's the same rule for both. If I multiply 2 numbers that have the same sign, so that means if I multiply a positive times a positive, like 3 times 4, or a negative times a negative. We'll do negative 3 times negative 4. For both of these, the answer is a positive 12. Okay, so you're going to multiply them like normal. So you multiply the 3 and the 4, just like you normally would. And if they both have the same sign, the answer comes out, as you see above, a positive 12. Now, a good way to think of this, obviously, 3 times 4 is 12. You've known that since, 2nd, 3rd grade. But a negative 3 times a negative 4, you might have thought, like when we're adding 2 negatives, you get a more negative answer. That isn't the case with multiplication. In multiplication, the negatives cancel out. All right. Now, if I have a negative 3 and a positive 4, or I have a positive 3 and a negative 4, okay, then the answer comes out to be a negative 12. Okay, and the reason here is these are different signs. So instead of finding the difference, I'm going to skip right on down to this minus sign, and the answer comes out to be a negative number. Just like if the two things have the same sign, I'm going to skip right down to the answer, and I'm going to make the 12 a positive 12. Okay? So that's it. So buried in the second rule, the second commandment, that we use when we're adding, subtracting integers, is the rule for multiplying and dividing. All right, now that may sound a little confusing, but I think you're going to see it's not. So let's look at 5 examples I've written down here for multiplying, and by the way, this is for multiplying or dividing. So the first examples I've written down are for multiplying, okay? So remember, if they're the same sign, instead of finding the sum this time, just go one more step, sum plus positive, okay? So, and if they're different signs, like this one, 3 and negative 8, think difference, negative or minus, okay? And so that's going to come out a negative answer. So 3 times 8 is 24. One positive, one negative, we get a negative 24 because they're different signs. Negative 6 times 4, again, it's 24. And one negative, one positive, they're different signs. So think difference, except instead of taking the difference, think that means negative or minus. Negative 6 times negative 3 equals 18. 6 times 3 is 18, and they're both negative, so we get a positive 18. And there's nothing wrong with putting a plus sign down to just remind yourself that one's positive. 11 times 7 is the same problem you've seen forever. It's positive 77. And finally, a negative 11 times 7 is also 77, but this time the signs are different, so we're going to get a negative 77. Okay? All right, now let's look at division. It's exactly the same rule. Okay? So again, if the two things have the same sign, the answer is going to come out positive. If they have a different sign, the answer is going to come out negative. Okay? So let's go through these. 14 divided by negative 2. Well, 14 divided by 2 is 7. A positive divided by negative is a negative 7 because they're different signs, so think through to the negative sign. A negative 24 divided by a positive 3. 24 divided by 3 is 8. Negative divided by positive, they're different, so let's make it a negative 8. Okay? I'm going to make that last one double negative. All right, and 30 divided by negative 2. 30 divided by 2 is 15. One positive, one negative, so the answer is negative 15. And finally, negative 16 divided by negative 4. They're both negative, so the answer is 4. And negative divided by negative, this time they're same signs, so think all the way through the sum to the plus sign, and so we're going to put positive 4 down. That's it, boys and girls. It is that simple. So out of the second commandment comes the rule for multiplying and dividing positive and negative numbers. Okay, so I want you to just kind of think about this, try to tuck it away in your brains. We are going to practice this. We're going to practice the tar out of this in class on Monday. So other than that, make sure you've got this. Make sure you can answer questions about it. And other than that, enjoy the weekend, and we will practice in class on Monday. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in class. Goodbye.